To order. Danielle, will you call the roll? Yes.
Ms. Cordova,
Here.
Mr. Robinson,
Here.
Mr. Lopez,
Here.
Mr. Rackler,
Here.
Mr. Merrick,
Here.
Mr. Self,
Here.
Ms. Parker,
Here.
Mr. Elkins.
Here.
Okay, if you will please rise. Mr. Robinson will give the invocation and I will lead us in the pledge.
Thou be his pleased with me. Father in heaven, we come to you tonight to ask your continued blessing on our community. Blessing on our work staff and the mayor where he's on his travels. Watch over him till he gets back home. And be with this council tonight and we can make decisions to honor your name. In the name of Jesus Christ, I pray.
Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Salute the flag of the state of New Mexico, the state symbol of perfect friendships among the United Nations. Okay, welcome everybody to our meeting tonight. And thank you for accommodating for us to be able to attend the meeting tomorrow. We appreciate it. Our first item is minutes of the previous meeting. That was on April 9th, 2024. They are in your packet for review.
There no public comment?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, there's no public comment. There was nobody listed on the list.
Thank you.
Yes, sorry.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion by Ms. Parker and a second by Mr. Elkins. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
I'll abstain those.
Okay, we have 4 approvals, 1 abstention. Thank you, Justin. Okay, our next item is our discussion for the water update. EJ, you're taking that one?
Yes, ma'am. Our staff had previous engagements and family emergencies that didn't allow, so I asked Mr. Mendoza to type up a letter for me to read with the typical information, so I'll read that now. Since January 1st, 2024, the water department has repaired and replaced a total of 8 fire hydrants. The next 5 hydrants to be replaced, it'll begin on April 25th, is University and South Globe and East 17th, North Bryan and East Canadian, South Abilene and East 15th or East 5th, North Avenue I and West Ivy. And as they update those, they will notify you in the following updates. The water department maintains all parts of the system on the distribution side, including the sewage system, water taps, fixing water leaks, mainline repairs and replacements, maintaining isolation valves and controls, fire hydrant maintenance, meter can maintenance, meter reading, meter programming, customer service, reporting, cutoff, sewer flushing, and sewer main repairs and replacement. He did provide a bunch of information on the tank levels. Specifically on April 22nd, the tank level was at 29 foot. From March 4th to April 22nd, it ranged from anywhere from 24 foot to 30 foot. The staff recommendation at this time is to continue our water conservation efforts and to use water where it counts. The city is looking into additional storage in the well field to help production and give more storage to help meet the total demand during high peak seasons. The city needs to move on stage 3 of all the well field study, not the restrictions, but the well field study itself. The city is currently looking into completing a SCADA system for the entire well field, which will be very beneficial as we've learned through our partners over at Roosevelt County Electric. As of right now, the storage tanks fluctuate between 24 and 30 foot, depending on demand. The city of Portales is gravity fed from the storage tanks and to the residents. And I'll stand for any limited questions that I can answer because it says fire chief, not water chief.
Do we have,
All things water, right?
Yes.
do we have any questions?
Have you been able to use some of the reused water?
Yes, yes. Today we started some operations with the reuse water. Part of the issues with the reuse water, as we've discussed, is we had to flush that hydrant for about 10 minutes. So we elected to use the one on industrial to keep it out of a residential area. And we've been using a tanker to take it back and forth so that we can put a little bit of water where it needs to be so that we can get the fire kind of it's in control, but more safe, so to speak. We're working with the owners of Hampton Farms to try to get some more extensive plans started in the morning, but we will continue to use reuse for that project.
Yes. Mr. Robinson.
Chief, Senior Manager, could you, when you reuse water, what is the reduction there?
The reduction.
Well, like if you're using this water, do we have enough water to supply to go around in the wastewater?
Yes, sir. We've coordinated with wastewater and the water department to ensure, I believe at this time, we've only used about 18,000 gallons. And we can use up to whatever we need as long as they're aware and they can capture what needs to be captured.
Piggyback on that question, do we have used water for the parks then?
As far as I know, to the parks that it's plumbed to, yes, sir. But there are issues with that system, as everyone is well aware.
Thank you.
Any others? Okay, thank you, Chief Kathy. Okay, now we'll move on to our action items. Our first action item is discussion and possible action regarding stage 3 water restrictions. And this is going to be led by Mr. Elkins.
Okay, so with the Water Advisory Committee that I've sat in for the last couple of meetings, along with the Public Works, we are developing a new drought contingency plan to replace our current plan. Now, currently that plan is still in place. And so that current plan essentially reads, once we drop in our tanks below 18 feet, we enter stage 3. I've visited with a couple of members of staff today. I don't believe that we've dropped below the 18 feet mark since about July of 23. We've maintained our supply and we've kept up with it as far as the demand of it. So we kind of had a couple of internal discussions, and I feel that it would be in the best interest for the members of our community and for the betterment of our community to lift the restrictions within reason. I visited with Mr. Mendoza and Chief today. We don't want to just go full blown, hey, let's go crazy and just start watering whatever we want, whenever we want. There still has to be restrictions. The current plans in place, I think they work great, or they worked great, but now we're worried about the longevity, not whether or not we can keep up with the supply and demand. And so pending the approval and the new plans, I think we kind of wanted to see if we could test it out. And so I would make the motion to lift restrictions to the level 2 restriction, stage 2, but instead of 3 times per week, just start with 1 time per week, 30 minutes per week per household. It's a start. It's not great, but for right now, it would at least show us what's going to happen to our tanks. It's going to add the demand to prove whether or not we can sustain the lifting of the restrictions in its entirety. But that would be my recommendation, and that would be my motion. But I'd love for some
I'll
discussion.
second the motion. Before we vote on that, I would sure like to
Discuss it.
discuss it and possibly change.
Yeah,
what
I'm
you're-
with you.
What you're discussing before we vote on it, because in my opinion, if we're gonna do it procedurally and put it on the council's vote, I think we should change it to water, just like we had before, even
For stage
addresses
2.
and odd addresses
Mhm.
on certain days. But I'm proposing that we water twice a week and break it up. For example, maybe Monday we do odd even addresses. Tuesday we do even addresses, let them water. No water on Wednesday. And then back to Thursday, your odd addresses, so that gives you basically 3-day
Mhm.
intervals. And then back to the following Monday, that gives you 4 days, so you kind of break it up. And then Friday, that would be even addresses, so the even addresses would be Tuesday and Friday. Sunday would be no water, so again, the no water would be Sunday and Wednesday. And then Saturday, I'm proposing that we allow at least one day to wash vehicles. I think, to me, this is a quality of life decision. I'm not asking just to water a lawn, or that's not my importance. I've got people that say they're moving from Portales when, when their kid graduates in the near future. They're worried about basically their property value. If we're gonna run out of water, I don't think that's the case. If we would have followed the emergency contingency plan before, we would have been out of stage 3 last year. But it was a fear tactic. Again, I'll be the first one to say, hey, we have a major problem. I think we know that we need to do some serious stuff in the well field. But in my opinion, it's not black and white. We gotta give and take. I think we need to give back to the community. That's what I would propose, but I'll stay up there, whatever the council. So
I'm gonna go on record as being adamantly opposed to all of that. Because we don't have anything that has changed in the situation at the well field. We have not added any more wells. We have shown a steady decline in our well field. And it's more important to have water for yards and water and washing vehicles than it is to have longevity and being able to take a shower and drink water. I don't think so. And until we can come up with some solutions that remedy that situation, it has been proven that we have been able to maintain where we're at with the stage 3. And I think we should stay on that. I understand the property value thing. I've got a house that's lacking a yard also. And I used to take pride in my yard. And there are other means of beautifying your yard. I know they're costly, but we have got to get into place a rate structure that penalizes those that have been defying the order of stage 3 currently. We've got a lot of yards that don't have a well that are still watering their grass. And they either need to be paying a huge amount, or I hate to go to the point of shutting off water for people, because it's a staple that we've got to have to use to bathe and what have you. But people have got to realize that we are in a dire situation here. And it's not that we're running out of water, we're trying to conserve it until the point that we can add to it with the deep water pipeline, or explore and develop more wells and get our well field back up and running better. We've all been out there, we looked at the situation. We think we can put a storage tank out there and alleviate some of the strain on the wells that are there and help that. But these things are all going to take time. And I was one of the first to jump on the bandwagon whenever we went into that, why are we doing this? Well, now that I've been out there and seen everything that's going on, and I've been to the wastewater plant and I've seen the inefficiencies there, we've got some work to do. And until we can make some adjustments and get some things back on track, we have got to stay in that conservation mode. And so I oppose that motion adamantly.
Okay, I would like to, since I guess it looks like we're kind of going down the road here. I totally agree with what you guys are saying. I don't know if I agree with totally Reston's, but it's something that we definitely need to do. Coming down Abilene, just in the short time when I turned off of 2nd Street, in one block, there's 5 houses, 4 of them are for sale. And so people are putting their house up for sale, but they're not selling them because nobody's wanting to come to Portales. And the other day when we were at our water meeting, I had suggested, we have got to do something. The public is definitely looking at us, those that are up here and, and I went on a water well tour this last week with Chris Mendoza and is it Philip that works with him? And they did such a good job of everything. I'm sorry, Eric, I'm sorry. And they did such a good job and they're working so hard and they were basically thrown into the situation, which is unfortunate for them. And we're all looking at them going, okay, what are you guys gonna do? What are you guys gonna do? But the citizens of our community are so concerned because it's coming summer. We cannot turn the sprinkler on and let our kids run through the sprinkler because the neighbor across the way is going to be looking at us, reporting us. We're becoming vigilantes on this. It's really, really bad. So on one hand, they're saying, okay, people are putting their houses on the market. They're trying to leave Portales because of what's going on. But then on the other hand, I was told, well, if we do go off this and we let them water, then eventually we'll have no water and there'll be nobody here anyway. But we're very concerned about where we're going with this. We have to show that we're making a good faith effort in doing this. And yes, I agree with what you're saying too, but it's going to take forever. It's going to take a long time to get to where, okay, we're good, everybody, but there'll be nobody here. There'll be nobody left. The people that are here because we love Portales. We're working hard for Portales. We're having everybody come together. I mean, more so than ever on trying to make this work. And we're trying to find a happy medium. But if it's something that we do and we go off of stage 3 and back to stage 2, I think the public and our citizens realize now how important it is. And I think kind of what you're saying is that do it on a trial and saying, okay, this is what's going to happen. We're going to basically go off of stage 3 and go to stage 2, basically at an altered state. But if the water starts going down because you're abusing it, then we're going to have to turn it off. And we know how crucial that is and how that's going to hurt us. But we have to remember, and we have to start educating the public on what our current policy is saying, because you can't water in the middle of the afternoon at 2 o'clock in the afternoon when it's 90 degrees out and let the water sprinklers go for 6 hours. I mean, it has to be before a certain time in the morning. That can after a certain time at night, and stay very, very, very diligent and very, very make sure you know when you're supposed to and what you can do. And we ourselves have to monitor ourselves. And I think we were talking about going on a different system as far as self-monitoring, instead of the city being the police and making sure you're not watering or I'm not watering. But yet when I get a big bill, I mean, if you want to water, you're going to pay for it. And some people are saying, you know what, I don't care if I have green lawn or not. I'll do whatever I need to do. I'm not going to water because I want my water bill to be very low, then so be it. But if I want green grass and I want to make sure I water, I'll pay for it. So it's up to us. We'll self-monitor each individual person. So, there's lots of different things. They were talking about the SCADA, putting it on and to where it's like they can know right away. Because I was asking Eric or Chris Mendoza, okay, so you have to check these wells how often? And he said at least once, it was once a month. And I said, I'm sorry. Okay. He said, yes, but we have to literally come out to the well fields and check every single well manually. And I'm like, are you kidding me? That cannot be happening. So he said, we're trying to get the SCADA system so where we can just do it. And each individual customer will be able to monitor their own. And if I feel like my bill's really high, you can go on yourself and monitor and look and see, do I have a leak? What's going on? And they'll be able to tell you right away. So there is a lot of things that we have to do behind the scenes. But in the meantime, I think we need to start letting up because like you said, there's people already watering. And so it's like, here we go. That's just my opinion.
Mr. Rocker?
I have a couple of questions. First of all, I know we've all lost a lot of sleep over this one and spent a lot of time personally in prayer over this one, and I'm still battling back and forth on what we're gonna do tonight. I have a couple of questions. First of all, do those of you on that water group have any estimation of how long that new plan will take before you have something ready to present?
We had talked about having it presented to the Public Works Committee. Mr. Davids, you might have to help me on this. Is it May 7th is the next Public Works Committee meeting? To present to them, and then it can be brought to council at that point. And we have a very extensive plan now, but we do want to tweak it a little bit and tailor it to meet the need. But we're getting it out as quick as we can, but we really wanted to get it done before May because people are watering.
Does it include the rate hike we're talking about when you're excessive?
No, because this is all about the drought conservation. It's not really about the rate making of it. It's more about the consumption and not the revenue and expense of the water. I agree with Eldon on the rate side of it. You want to tier your rates to a point to where your low end consumers are not being treated unfairly. They should, if they have a family with 3 kids and they don't water their yards, they shouldn't be penalized. So you get the basis of that and say, hey, here's the basis of what we're charging. And if you want to go water your yard, you buy this much, you're going to pay this rate. And so as you consume more, you will be charged more. That we're dealing with waterworks or Worth. And so that is coming with the rate study. And that will help self-police, if you want to call it that. To where, hey, if I don't want a $500 water bill, I'm not going to water my yard. But if I want a green yard, I'm going to be able to pay $500 for it. Those should be 2 different topics.
Okay, the next thing I am concerned about, I think we all need to be prepared for if a lifting of the restriction passes, we all need to be prepared for a special meeting at any time to go back. I'm talking within 3 days' notice, whatever that is. So I think we've got to be ready to move. However short a time frame we're allowed to do a special meeting, we all need to be prepared to come in and make that decision if we have to. Like I said, I have battled back and forth. I'm kind of like Eldon. We all wanted to fight the stage 3 from jump, but if you've gone through all I've gone through, he's gone through, we've all gone through to learn more about it. There's just a lot more to it than a lot of people know. And it's a very difficult decision. I hope the community understands that. But just to let you know where I'm at, I would be against anything more than 1 day a week at the most at this particular time.
Madam Mayor Pro Tem, may I make a statement?
Yes, I'm trying to find that email
I
that,
just forwarded it to you,
okay.
to your city email. One thing that I think some of the community members haven't realized or wrapped their head around that I didn't until I became chief and started understanding more of this side is that our system is completely gravity fed. So if we get below a certain point, that means nobody's gonna have any pressure. We're not gonna have enough pressure through that fire hydrant to effectively battle a house fire if it get below that certain point, which is why the restrictions were put in based on that pressure system. The other thing I would request is that whatever motion y'all vote on, it has clear direction for staff so that we know which direction y'all would like us to go. Specifically in the watering schedule, washing vehicles, fountains and pools, and then washing parking lots and sidewalks are the main 4 that Chris Mendoza highlighted to me. So if you could please address that so that we have direction, I would appreciate it.
So the email that I was looking for, TJ, was the one that is shown what his recommendations were coming off stage 2, and then it had it at the bottom. It's not on this email.
Stage 3. you mean?
Off
It's
stage
at the
3.
bottom of that
Oh.
email. It says amended restrictions that have to be strictly enforced would be a 30-minute watering peak per week. Odds of water on Tuesdays, evens water on Thursdays. Washing vehicles at home is allowed with a shut-off hose or a pressure washer only. Fountains and pools are prohibited. Washing of parking lots and pavement are prohibited. Is the direction that I received from Chris Mendoza at the water department. And if you'd like this copy, I'll.
No, I
I'll bring it to you.
Mr. Robinson, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, I guess I'm a little bit confused, from what I'm hearing the discussion about making a proposal like this tonight. I think we have 2 committees working on water issues. We have the advisory and the Public Works Committee. I think presentation like this should have been brought to Public Works Committee for a discussion to bring to the council for a vote. I think this is a premature motion, and I think we should wait until the committees, the two committees that are working with water have something to say about this. That's my first objection to this motion. The other thing is, I cut grass, so I can't vote. Because I cut grass. And I was cutting grass today over weeds. And lady next to me, customer next to me, had a beautiful green lawn. Across the street had a beautiful green lawn. But my customer had had a weed on. And she has been totally involved with making sure she didn't water her lawn. And she has a very beautiful property. She has a very beautiful house, but she bit the bullet and said, "Also, just cut my weeds." So I think that this motion is premature, and I think it should go it should be sent to the Public Works Committee or to the Advisory Committee, and then those two committees should bring to this council a post. We didn't have this discussion. And I think something of this nature should have been pre-discussed, and I think it's premature.
Oscar, I agree with you
But
completely.
I'm sorry, that's my opinion,
Right,
and that's
right,
all, and
Right.
when we vote, we'll vote.
right. I agree with you completely. My thoughts on that is people are still watering. Eldon said it beautifully. They're watering regardless of the restrictions. But I think that's because we don't like being told what to do.
And they're paying, if they're watering, their water bill reflects that, and they're paying. a
It
premium.
doesn't currently. That's an
Mine
issue.
did.
Well, the rate structure is not in place for that. Essentially, I can pretty much buy as much water as I want on the residential rate and it not be harmful to me. But my thoughts are, if we try and work with our community for the betterment of our community, as a customer service outlook, we are here to try and work with them. They're breaking the rules anyways. If we try and get them on our side to help conserve, they're saying, hey, yeah, they're letting us water, but with restrictions. Right now, they're doing it with or without us. And I think right now is a great time to make a stance on whether they should or should not. And it gives the staff direction on where they should go.
I'm not disagreeing with your motion. I can't change your motion. I'm just saying I disagree with the process. And I think it's premature, and I will stand by that.
Okay. So I think we need to just take a moment and realize the brevity of this situation. If we were stranded on a desert island and you had one big bottle of water, and that had to last you until it either rained or you were rescued, would you just take big gulps of that water, or would you ration it and save it on the hope that you were going to get something better? That's a good way to look at it, because if we start letting people pump and we start doing irreparable damage to the well field that we currently have, it's not like we can just snap our fingers and it's just going to replenish itself. We all know that it has just been continually decreasing year by year. We've seen it in the reports. We've seen it in all the evidence. And for us to just say, well, let's just try it and see what happens. Yeah, we might be able to handle it for 6 months or a year, but then what happens if all of a sudden this well goes down, that well goes down, that one goes dry, and then you're down to where we're just barely able to function to keep water for everybody to take baths and shower and drink. And then you're in a situation like the road, New Mexico, where they're having to bring water in by rail for their citizens to drink because they don't have any other options. And I hate to paint that bleak of a picture, but we have got to be good stewards of what we have. There should have been things done years ago way before now to divert this situation, but they weren't. And so hindsight's 2020. I could sit here and talk about that all night, but I'm not going to because that's behind us. What we've got to look at is the future. And I just can't see us doing it. And as far as whether or not we took a vote on it or whether we had the authority to go into a stage 3 or any of that, I go back to the same argument. If you're on a rowboat and you start taking on water and someone hollers out and says, we can't bail water because it's against the law, it's against the restrictions. So do you sit there and drown or do you bail water? You start bailing water. So I'm not saying whether it was right the way it happened or not, but the point is we've got to be in it to sustain. So, you know, that's kind of a moot point to me, whether or not it was done exactly properly. The fact is, we needed to be in that situation and we are. For it, you know, for it to be remedied. And so far, our reaction has been the remedy.
I have a comment to that. We've pretty much been on restrictions since last June. So it's coming up on 1 year that we have, according to our restrictions on level 3, that we should not be watering. I know there's people that don't abide by that, but overall, we have been on restrictions since last year. And that's why, like Oscar said, there's people that still are mowing their weeds. But I think the difference between what's happened in the past and what's happened now is that we realize the severity of what could happen. We now know basically all hands are on deck. I mean, we have people from the water department, on the council, through the county, through there's businesses in our community that realize that if we don't take care of this, it's going to be very, very severe to our community and to everybody here. So I think now at this point, the difference between then was that we were just watering happily and doing everything that we shouldn't have been doing. And there's things that we did not do in the past. And like you said, it's basically done. It's behind us. So we have to look at now and in the future. But I think now we know what's going to happen if we don't take care of business, each individual, because this has affected every single one of us. It's affected the schools. It's affected the businesses, every community member. So I think now if we were to go and do this, we are going to be a lot more cautious, I think, and aware of what's happening. So.
Sure, wonderful statement.
Sure. Go ahead.
Councilman Self made a comment about people leaving community. I have a direct lady called me and she said, Oscar, soon as school is out, 5 of us are moving out of our apartments and we're moving to close because, quote, the swimming pool is closed. The water restriction. So you're right, people are leaving. And I know 5 people right now, soon as school is out, they're already acquired apartments in Clovis. And because they don't have no place for their kids to go swim. And so maybe that's a little swimming. It may not be a big issue, but to that family it is. Those 5 people it is. Enough that they picking up their bags and moving north. So we need to think about some of the things before we start making all these restrictions.
Mr. Self.
I kind of want to follow up to Eldon's comments. I respect you, Eldon, but I'm going to disagree on some things. Just because you can afford a private well or you can afford a private well, there's a lot of people that have done it since last summer. Well, that's more straws in the basket, right? Another thing is Lubbock, right on the state line, they're pumping all that water. Huge, massive pipe. Evidently a car can fit through that's pumping a lot of heat. Epcor, they've got a little different model, but they've got, you know, farmers and people that have converted their well to municipal well and they're piping it up. my deal is, I go back to a quality of life issue. This is not about watering my lawn. I want a better quality of life, and I don't want to wait until a U pipeline, and there might be a snag in that U pipeline, it may be longer than 8 years. You had a previous city managers that said that we went on stage 3 because people were using evaporative coolers and something else. I can't, what was it? Agriculture. Well, I think a lot of those have been addressed on the water co-op. Didn't agree at all with the way we handled the water co-op. That's just my opinion. The more I learn, but we didn't address an industrial user at all. Got a major industrial user. I'm not gonna talk percentages or figures. That'll come to light hopefully sooner than later, once we get everything straightened out, but to me, there was distrust from the leadership in Portales that was feeding this nonsense. I can prove that there was an IPRA request asking the city manager why we went into stage 3. The specific question was there anything that happened in the well field? She answered no. What else? She said there was no maintenance, which I talked to Larry Jewell, who's in charge of the well field. He said 3 or 4 days prior, there was a main well that went down. They did do maintenance on it because they had it all torn apart and they had to get apart. So again, I have distrust from the previous leadership from that they're no longer here. I'm not saying let's do this to do it just the procedural way. I'm saying we need to get the trust back from the public, which we did not have with previous leadership. And the more we've seen on our tours and stuff, if John Shea was so smart, why did he propose a tank on that side of town? Why didn't he propose it in the well field where we need relief, where we can? There's just distrust, and I was trying to leave their names out of it, but now I'm a little fired up. I don't.
I've got it.
So okay,
When you're
I think
done,
I'm
go
good.
ahead.
you go first.
No, go ahead.
Okay. I kind of want to piggyback off you, Rustin. In the middle of June, the water or the electric co-op had to come help get a booster pump back online. That's what caused the tanks to drop. It was not an increase in demand. It was a supply issue that something broke, and once it was fixed, we were able to fill the tanks and keep up with demand. So it was not we were overusing. It was, hey, something broke on our system. And I confirmed this with Chris Mendoza today. Once that was fixed, we were out of the hole. Now, Eldon, I agree with you. There is a longevity piece that we are unaware of. We could last 3 weeks. We could last 30 years. Now there are hydrologist reports that say, I think 2027, is that what you said, Mike Davidson? That we could be out of water. And I completely agree with that. If that's the case, how are we allowing that industrial load that Rustin is referring to use 28% of our water? Of our 792 million gallons sold, they used 223 of that. So if we are going to allow an industrial load to profit from our water, I don't believe we're truly in a water crisis. That may be a step that we need to take if that's the way that this council goes tonight. But if we're going to allow an industrial commercial load to suck us dry, I just don't know that I can agree with us being in a true crisis. And that's all I got on that.
Mayor, I've got
I agree with some of the things that Rustin was saying. But the point is, those all take time to start falling in place. And we can't be irresponsible until those things get into place. I'm not saying that we're not ever going to be able to do it again. I'm not saying that we won't be able to make some strides and get things back in line. And as part of that, I think we really need to hardly visit EPCOR and see what they're willing to do they have the expertise to come in here and look at our well field, our proposed well field, our wastewater plant, our inefficiencies there. They have the capital and the means to go in and tie in the other city parks that we have and get those back online. We found a huge deficiency in the amount of water that we can pump out of that through this new system. And they have the backing to be able to remedy some of that. But for us to just say, well, let's just try the system out by letting everybody water 1 day a week. And what if it fails? In a month and a half or 2 months, and we have to shut them back off. They get their yard going again, and then all of a sudden we shut them off. They're gonna be even more mad. I mean, right now, we're in a situation where they've kind of become used to it. They may not like it. I don't like it. None of us like it. But what other option do we have? Are we gonna sit here 4 or 5 years from now when those wells start going dry and say, dadgum, I wish we hadn't went back to water? Or are we just gonna keep being on the conservation measures until we can get some of these other things in place and start seeing a solution? And that's, I don't know how else to say it.
Mr.
I got
Lopez?
something to, that means Council Parker said, since this been going on, I haven't missed a month that I don't get over $100 bill. So it's got nothing to do with the water, because I'm being conservative and everything, but I still get that bill. And that doesn't matter to me, because I pay it anyway, but it's not gonna be the bill that you're gonna get whenever you use more water.
There's more on that bill than just water.
Yeah.
We've got all kinds of things. We got trash, we got the wastewater plant, we got sewer, we got all of that.
And that's the thing, Jake, is the customer charges are so high that it doesn't matter if you consume very much.
That's
You're
what I'm
you're
saying.
getting penalized without consumption. So we need to penalize with consumption. And that's what a proper rate study would be.
Well, I don't mind paying whatever I'm paying, but I'm not worried about the bill. I'm just worried about the water.
So I would also like to go on record saying that I really don't think that we should come off of stage 3 just quite yet. I think we should do that rate study, have all of those in place to where if you are gonna water and you are gonna be a high user, you're gonna pay for that. Just by reading this little update that Chris Mendoza sent over, it's still production. The situation at hand is still production versus demand. The demand should never grow higher than what our production is. And right now, our wells just aren't, if we were to go off, wouldn't produce what we need. If we have another fire like we did this last week and everybody's using that water, who's to say that something worse couldn't happen because we don't have the production from the wells that's giving the pressure. I'm sad that I don't have a vote tonight because I am sitting as Mayor Pro Tem tonight. And I would vote for a no. And I just want that to be on record as well. I know that I'm like Eldon, I'm not saying that I don't ever want to come off the stage 3, but I think that we need to be in a better situation, have better solutions before we actually come off. I know our water committee has been working really, really hard to get us off of that and to go through with the stages for the water contingency plan, the drought plan, and working with Waterworth to get our rates in line. So with that, is there anything else that anybody else would like to say before we?
I'd like to say something.
Okay, go ahead.
Who put this in the agenda to, not for discussion, but to vote on?
I did.
Or you did put it on the agenda?
Mhm.
Right next to it.
Yeah, well, I know it's there, but we should have had it for discussion only, not to vote.
That was the option, is that we can vote on it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's
that was what
a
I-
possible action.
Well, I would wait to vote for it if that's what it's gonna be, but all this discussion, it's turned around.
You seconded the motion.
I second the motion.
Right.
That
Back to
doesn't
my
mean we're
point.
gonna vote for it, but
I'm
Well,
sure.
we're
Yes,
voting
sir.
on it, but
we
Okay, well-
wanted,
You don't have-
we wanted a
Okay,
discussion.
if we'll just,
Yeah.
if we'll just give Oscar a chance.
Back to my point, that's why I'm still saying this motion is premature. And the discussion is great, but this is not the forum for it. So I really call for the question. Because I don't think this motion has valid, it's really valid.
Well, I got it approved through legal counsel and through the mayor. And they both said to do it this way.
The mayor don't have a vote.
I'm with you, but this is the way that we did it, Oscar.
Don't have a
And,
vote.
and I made the motion, so we can vote on it.
But that's my point, the legal counsel do not have a vote, nor does the mayor.
But he tells us if we can or cannot do it, and we can do it.
You can't tell me how to vote.
I'm not saying we have to vote. I'm saying we are going to vote yes or no. I don't
He's
care
just
how you
saying the
vote.
process.
Okay,
process
guys,
is-
so let's get back in order here. So we have a motion on the table. And we have a second.
Can we read the motion again? Yes.
Okay, I would make a motion that we lift the stage 3 restrictions to the level 2 restrictions with the amendment of only being able to water 1 time per week, 30 minutes per week. Odd houses on Monday, even house addresses on Thursday, and they have to be between the hours of 9 PM and 7 AM.
Okay, before we have a second, I would like to state that if you make a motion to come off the restrictions, I would like a little more discussion based off of what we're going to agree to. Because-
Sure, we have a second. Yeah,
We have a
Mr.
second.
Lopez
Here's a
seconded
second.
the motion.
Okay,
I'm
so,
willing to pull it back. If that's what you want me to do.
okay, because I. So I just think that we can't. I
Well,
think we
there's
need to
two
really,
motions,
really,
there's two motions right there, the way you said it now.
yeah, but he read it verbatim.
I read it how I wrote it
Yeah.
down.
So I would just like more discussion prior to just saying, this is the motion, this is what we're gonna do. Before we just say, yes, we're just gonna go with
Okay.
what you
And-
decide.
Yeah,
With your
that's,
motion.
that's my motion is, you want me to redo it? So that we hear it again?
No, we
Okay.
already know it.
You got it?
Yep.
Okay.
Did you pull your second back or did you want to keep your second?
I can't do, that's what. I gotta vote, we gotta vote.
Okay, so we have a motion by Mr. Elkins, a second by Mr. Lopez. And
Well, I have a question. So you're just telling us when we can go off of restriction 3,
Mhm.
when we can vote and the times we can vote. But you don't.
Water.
Water, I mean, vote, water. Okay, I know, I'm sorry. But you're not saying anything specifically about like washing cars, kind of like what Mr. Mendoza had stated, washing cars, fountains and pools, or watering.
I believe it would fall under the rules of the stage 2 that he mentioned in his motion.
The stage 2 allows for more watering. I'm willing to reduce the amount of water. Stage 2 is three
3 times. a week.
3 times per week. And
Okay.
I'm saying instead of the stage 2 and in order to help conserve, you're just pushing it to 1 day a week. Everything else for stage 2 remains in place. No washing of cars, no washing of pavements, no refilling of pools. That's it.
yes,
Legal counsel, can we even do that? I mean, we're reverting to something that's not even on the books.
I agree. I think it needs clarification. It's my understanding, we had a motion in a second, and I think the question was called for already. If the question's been called for, debate ends, and, but, yeah, I think you definitely you would need additional clarification. Like you're not coming off 3 and going into a 2, you want to modify 2, you're gonna need to have that changed as well.
So what would we need to do? Would we need to,
If the question's been called, then
Have to
you just,
vote.
We have
you
to
vote. That's all there is to it.
okay, and then that just, then it's over.
Yes.
I mean, you wouldn't be able to bring it back modified.
Not
No.
tonight, but you could bring it back at any future meeting.
Okay,
Any future meeting, bring it back up.
Okay, so we have a motion and we have a second. Before we call the roll, I just want everybody to just take into consideration that there's needs to be some modifications to stage 2 and keep that in the back of your mind as you are voting. Danielle, will you please call the roll?
Yes.
Mr. Robinson,
No.
Mr. Lopez,
Yes. I second it.
Mr. Rackler,
No.
Mr. Merrick,
No.
Mr. Self,
Yes.
Ms. Parker,
yes.
Mr. Elkins.
Yes.
Okay, we have a vote of 4 yeses and 3 nos. I would like to state that I do appreciate all of the water authority, not the water authorities, the water committees work on this, and I know that this is a hard pill to swallow for you guys, but we appreciate all your work. You want to say it?
I do want to say something
Go ahead.
that if you don't mind. I guess it's too late on that regard. Christine has been threatening me that if I need to say something, I have to walk over to this podium.
Yes.
Since she kind of scares me, I'm gonna comply. You know, I agree. First of all, I disagree with one of your numbers. You stated 800 million. I think that's from 2023. The reason I disagree is because in 2022, 2021, and 2020, the Charles Wilson report stated that we had been using 900 million gallons a year. And as a matter of fact, their terminology was we have stabilized at 900 million gallons a year. So either that number is 100 million gallons off, or stage 3 restrictions saved us 100 million gallons. Secondarily, and we don't just pull numbers from a city spreadsheet and give to these guys. They are under the guidance of New Mexico Office of State Engineers, as well as the American Water Utility Authority audits those numbers. So they're pretty close to being accurate. The other thing that they recommended was that we do reduce our consumption from 900 million gallons per year to 700 million gallons per year, which we have failed miserably on. And that was 4 years ago. And they said, start with 700 million gallons, or start with the 700 million gallons and reduce that amount by 1% per year. So regardless, we currently sit about 700 million gallons behind the curve as we speak, possibly 800 million gallons. And we're in 2024. The Ute water is going to get here maybe in 2032. So we've just lost an entire year. In the last 4 years, we've lost an entire year's worth of water. Now, on the other side of that coin, I live closer than anybody. I'll be watering before y'all get home. I do want to water my grass, of course, like everybody else. But I mean, we're looking at this through this little picture, this big. There is a bigger picture to this that we're failing to see. I'm going to be brutally honest with you. And this is something some of you are not going to want to hear. Portales government is being recognized now statewide and in part of Texas as how not to manage water. We are being used for a model by symposiums and webs. It's gone across the governor's desk. It's gone across the state engineer's desk. If you want to know how to not manage water, see Portales, New Mexico. So I think this is another decision that falls under that guise. This is not how to manage water. Honestly, I think that for the past decade, we have not known what we were doing. I don't think we know what we're doing now. And I'm gonna go out on a limb and say, we're not gonna know what we're doing in the next 5 or 10 years. I really think we ought to turn this over to a professional water management team that knows what they're doing and saves us literally this misery. I mean, I want to water grass too, but I think that this is a very bad decision. I think it's going to come back to haunt us. And it's not something that we can just down the road say, oh, well, we messed up. Let's crank the pumps up and catch up. So at any rate, that's my 2 cents worth.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Okay, next item is community services. Ms. Kelly. Our first item is recommendation for approval of planning and zoning vote for resolution PC 2024-2025-05. Application for a summary subdivision plat to divide a parcel of land addressed as 306 North Avenue S. Application is asking for an exception that the easement for the egress not be paved and privately maintained. This was unanimously approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Awesome. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. So we just had a planning and zoning, so I'm gonna take over your city council just for a little bit. This is the first application that went through. This is technically in county limits, but it is right up against the boundary. So you step across the street, you're in the city limits. So we always look at these, which are considered to be subdivisions, with the glass that at some point they may be annexed into the city. So, Mr. Chris. So here is what they want to do. That was it beforehand. This is it. So they want to separate it into the 4 lots. Have the 3 on the bottom, have a permanent ingress egress there, which would be 22 feet, which is what the county holds. I don't remember what the city is, but we require a wider road. So this went to planning and zoning. This was recommended for approval. We had property owners, 3 for it, 1 against it. They did not state why they were against it. And then the public utilities were for it. The only concern that was brought up at planning and zoning, and Mr. Rackler can do this because I was actually at a plane crash and I missed this meeting, was that being a permanent egress ingress, but because it is on private property, the city doesn't do permanent easements, but private owners can. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those. Would you go to the next one? I think I do actually have. I believe that was it. And that's just some of the information about when these were set up and set up for public hearings. Are there any questions I can answer for you?
Mr. Reckler, do you have anything to add on this one?
Not particularly. The division of the property is simply to separate lots for the family that owns the property for their children to build houses on the property. Long range, they would have to come back to planning and zoning if they did anything different than what they're doing or ask for it to be annexed into the city. And they would have to make the necessary changes if they chose to do so. They, at this time, have no desire to do so. So that's why I'm saying.
Do we have any other questions? What is the pleasure of the council?
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Reckler, a second by Mr. Elkins. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next item is item 2, recommendation for approval of planning and zoning vote for resolution number PC 2024-2025-06. This is the replat at 211-213 South Main Avenue to divide the lot into 2 parcels for potential tax and real estate purposes. This was unanimously approved by the Planning and Zoning Committee. Ms. Kelly.
So this is, as she was saying, this building that's in green is already split into 2. So there's 2 storefronts. It's just 1 parcel of land. For future real estate, if they'd like to sell it, as of right now, they can't just sell half the property without splitting it. So they're working on that split. It is already split by a concrete wall. And as I said, in functioning as 2 stores. We sent that out to property owners. We had 4 owners for it, 0 against, and then the utilities 2 for, and 0 against. you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
Any questions, or Mr. Reckler, would you like to add on this one?
Just real quick, there is one, they will have to add a meter and, to have water to the second, but they've agreed to do so because they will be separated properties, so there won't be water running both of them off of one meter, there'll be two separate meters, so. The actual buildings are really completely divided with that concrete wall in the middle, not really sure why it was named as one property to begin with, but, for their sake, they want to be able to sell one half and use the other half, or sell both halves at different times or whatever. I think it would help our downtown in any way we can to have more possible business, so. That's why it was.
Okay, any other questions? Pleasure of the council?
Move for approval?
Second.
We have a motion by Ms. Parker and a second by Mr. Lopez. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Item 3 is recommendation for approval of planning and zoning vote for resolution EC 2024-2025-07, requesting a variance for the address of 1517 South Globe Avenue for the repurpose of a building for the purpose of building a fence that does not meet R1 zone requirements. This was unanimously approved by the Planning and Zoning Committee as well. Ms. Kelly.
Perfect, so this is that house that we did a replat on not too long ago. As I said, we just did this, so you can see 15th Street, which is a platted roadway, but is undeveloped, meets Globe. Miss Chris, you go to this next one. So here is what the homeowners have applied for. So the variance is for, when you get to your side yard, to the front of your house, it has to be 4 feet. And they wanted to do 6 feet, which was approved at planning and zoning. The other part was up here where 15th Street meets Globe. We do a clear sight triangle, which is 25 feet on each side. You connect them and you don't put anything in that triangle. So if you are driving to a corner, you can see who's coming. So at first they wanted to do the 15 feet instead of the 25. But correct me if I'm wrong, they did change it. So they're content to do the 25 feet as long as it can be 6 feet high, which was announced at council. Approved at commission. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
Do we have any questions?
I have one question. Is this the property on Globe?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Now, they already got the structure for the fence up.
Yes, so they were able to get part of the permit, because you can have 6 feet in the back. But when you move to do the 6 feet in the forward, you needed to do a variance.
So is that premature, fencing?
I believe they did most of the back part and then stopped right before it's supposed to hit your 6 feet.
They have already corrected the side that's on 15th and backed it off to the 25 feet. The reason they haven't put any metal on is they're waiting for this decision. If they had to take posts down, they would take posts down, or if they needed to lower fence.
Structure is there.
Right, the metal is there, but not the actual panels.
Okay.
And they were waiting for this decision. As long as the decision passes, they'll go ahead and finish putting the metal up.
Okay.
We did, the one side on 15th was lowered to 4 feet for the first part. I think you can tell by the way it's
Yeah, wait.
welded. The reason we approved the 6 feet, because it's actually an alley, even though it's on the side of the house, it's actually an alley side, and there's 6 feet fences all the way down that alley.
Does it extend out past the alley on the other side?
It
Is
does not. It does
So it's even with that one, so it'd be
Right.
the exact same?
Right. And we backed, like I said, they agreed and already have backed off the side on 15th to the 25 feet, so you have the triangle of view. So we don't run into something like we're running into on the Bethel High.
Anybody else? What is the pleasure of the council?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Lopez and a second by Mr. Robinson. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, item 4, recommendation for approval of planning and zoning vote for resolution number PC 2024-2025-09 for a variance at the address of 818 North Avenue O for the purpose of adding a secondary residence to the property in an R1 zone. This was unanimously approved by Planning and Zoning Committee as well. Ms. Kelly?
Yes, ma'am. So what we have here, of course, is the property. You can see the one residential structure there. The red is the potential placement for the mobile home. It does look like at one point there was probably a second residence there anyways. There's some hookups. So we sent this out. We did have 2 protests from property owners. However, they just marked protest and then didn't leave a reason. So I'm unsure of what the reasoning is for the protest. There wasn't a lot to this one. It was recommended unanimously for approval at planning and zoning. Since the property already has capacity for the 2 trailers. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
I would like to stress for the record and on the video, so if anybody's watching, guys, if you oppose something, please come to planning and zoning and tell us why. If you oppose it, we'll be glad to listen and take into consideration what an objection is. But when no one shows up and they don't write anything on the form for Kelly to read to us, we don't have anything to go on but what's presented to us. As she said, there was a trailer back there at one point. You could see where it had been removed. They're just asking to put one back, so it was.
And these have separate meters there?
If they don't have separate meters, then they're charged for 2 units. Or they can have separate meters. It's usually up to the property owner. But yeah, if they just do one, they get charged for 2 different units.
Yes.
So if they're gonna move a mobile home in there, is there any requirements as to what quality of a mobile home that has to be?
So it does, I know the state, I believe they can't be more than 10 years old. Because they have to follow all the safety regulations, so they go through the New Mexico regulating department for that. We just make sure when they come in, that they meet our ordinances, which we would expect to a site-built home. So we meet that level of safety, and so it's not a nuisance.
And just as a word of information, since I'm a realtor, if a mobile home has already been moved into one side and someone decides to pick it up and move it to another side, that makes it ineligible for a lot of the loans. So it can be moved once from the factory to wherever it's set, but once you move it again, it's a possibility of getting to some of the loan. Just throwing that out there.
Good information.
Anybody else? Okay, what is the pleasure of the council?
Move to approve.
Second. I have a motion by Mr. Elkins and a second by Ms. Parker. All in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed?
No,
And any abstentions? Motion carries. Okay, item number 5 is intent to adopt amendment to ordinance number 688. Required for update of the national floodplain insurance to current FEMA standards and new floodplain maps recommended. This was also recommended by Planning and Zoning Commission.
Thank you. So, if you guys have been wondering what those maps are, so this is the new map that FEMA has done. Our last map was done in 2010, so this one reflects what, starting June 20th, if we stay in this program and do this intent to adopt, what our flood maps would look like. We have a picture of the old one because it's a huge difference, so this move is actually really good for us in terms of flood. So we've been in the NFIP since 1982. As I said, we've been using our maps since 2010. So this went to P and Z. Usually we don't take ordinances there first. However, we wanted to make sure that it was still good for the community to remain in the NFIP program. Sometimes communities, when they lose a lot of floodwaters, will drop out of the program. So I'll go over the pros and cons with council. Say the same information, but it is their recommendation, staff recommendation that we do stay in this program. As of right now, I said 2011, that's a typo. There's 211 active policies in our current flood area. Some of those may be able to be dropped depending on what mortgage and loans they have once this new flood map goes in. So we submitted our ordinance to FEMA to see what needed to come up. One new definition was required and then 2 recommended, and they were just about accessory buildings and agricultural accessory buildings. Both of them are good. And then, of course, this was submitted on Monday. Tuesday and Wednesday, we had our audit by FEMA. They came down and looked, and they had one additional required change. to the firm, which we'll put, if you guys agree to go within this intent, we'll put it in the final draft, which is just making sure this date is correct. Ms. Chris, we go to the next page. So this is our current floodplain map. So all of that blue and green is currently floodplain waters. We have to make people get special permits, elevation certificates, and engineering if they want to really do much construction there to make sure that it's built high enough that it will not flood on an expected flood. As in, if you look over there, the blue is what is going to remain on the new one. I feel like this one is much more honest to our floods areas. So this is a huge area. It's probably about more than half the town. Here's Chris, next one. Yeah. So perfect. So some of the pros and cons of staying in the program. The pros, of course, are it's a free program. And being in this free program opens up the city to additional emergency funds. So if we do have a flood, we have a natural disaster, those funds are available to us, which would no longer be available if we dropped out. Our participation in this gives citizens a 5% discount on their flood insurance. You can go category 1 to category 10. We're in category 9, which offers a 5% discount. The more strict you are, the higher discount that people can get. And then of course, remaining in this program keeps federally backed insurances for mortgages. If we dropped out of the program or didn't want to move forward with this intent, then when they go to renew their flood insurance next year, the federally backed insurances wouldn't be available to them. So they'd have to have private insurance. Some of the pros, some of the cons for it is we are currently doing the minimums. I said we're category 9 out of 10. So we can't really loosen the restrictions in the ordinance that you guys have read. There is a variance ability in our ordinance. However, FEMA has stated that they really wouldn't back any variances from us because we are not really in a position where variances would be allowed. They'll allow it if, you need to be lower for shrimp boats, for ice boats, but there's no reason for us, they said, to have them. So even though we allow variances for council, we submit them to FEMA to see if they would be accepted or not. If they weren't accepted, then it could penalize us as well. And we are audited by a third party, so we do have to follow these very closely. So if council member or special circumstances pop up, we really don't have any leeway that's not in the ordinance. I think that's it. So this is just the intent to introduce. So if you move forth it today in 30 days, we bring to do a public hearing on this ordinance itself. But I can answer any questions in the meantime if you have them.
Kelly, you said that you would go into, this would take effect June?
Yes, so we get
Okay.
this accepted by June 1st, and then this map would go into effect June 20th.
So if we had property owners that came off of the flood plan prior, then they would just have to go to their, insurance companies to
Yeah.
get that.
And on June 20th, some mortgages you have to probably stay in it, that being on the mortgage, but some mortgages may allow you to drop that flood insurance because you are no longer in the flood zone.
Okay. Do we have any other questions?
I have a few comments.
Okay.
So I'm familiar with this again because I'm a realtor, but I noticed in there's a lot of provisions in there for new building code. So if you have a basement, you have to basically make what's the word I'm trying to find, a non-penetrable barrier in the dirt around the basement before you build it, so that water can't come in from the outside source into your basement. The bottom of the basement is the point of elevation that they will use to determine the amount of flood insurance that you need. The other thing is, we used to go by what they call the 100-year floodplain and a 500-year floodplain. So those that were in the 500-year floodplain were on the outer edges. And it was once in every 500 years that you had the probability of being flooded. And the prominent part of town was in the 100-year floodplain, that goes pretty much right through the middle of town on a northwesterly to southeasterly direction. So I noticed that they did extend that outer region out into some yards. Mine actually became one that in the front yard, it shows to be in the floodplain, and it wasn't in the previous plan. So my question is, since this becomes part of the floodplain now, our mortgage company is gonna come in and state that you have to have flood insurance on properties that were not previously insured.
If it's just the yard, I don't believe so, and this would probably be up to the specific mortgage companies. What I can say for us is if you went to build in that part of your yard, then anything that was in that floodplain would then follow these rules. As I know that was taken out, not where many buildings that have gone in, but if you are paying a mortgage or a loan, there's a possibility that you might have to.
There were several on that block that brought in lots of fill dirt to raise the elevation of their home to keep it out of that flood zone. I was one of them. So,
And if I'm correct, though, then you can help me on this, because you're in a different part of real estate than I am. It's my understanding that the floodplain is what it is. We
Right.
don't have any option on whether we accept it, don't accept it. We're just deciding whether or not we want to be a part of the program that helps with insurance rates and helps with emergency funding. And I agree with you. I hate some of the things about the new floodplain, but I love the fact that a big part of the city's out of it now, which is good for a lot of folks, just bad for you.
And then, of course, being with this ordinance, we do have to follow what they request of what engineered studies they request or how high you need to build your buildings. Or if someone builds a building and doesn't do it correctly, what steps we have to take to rectify it. So we don't have as much, we don't have really as much leeway like the regular variances and ordinances because we do answer to a third party in this.
and this was all presented by FEMA, year and a half,
Yeah.
years ago.
Been a while.
And anybody could, basically say their input to them, whether they felt they were being unfairly flagged, I guess you could call it.
Yes, they did have a open period where if you felt it was incorrect, you could protest what their decision had been for the flood map.
Mr. Robinson?
Ms. Kelly, this floodplain is strictly for city of Portales residents, in our city proper. Not,
Yes.
cause there's a lot of houses being built outside, and pretty close to the city. But those, we don't have to worry about those.
We don't have to worry about that, but Roosevelt County is part of the NFIP program as well. So they were not as thrilled to get so much addition to their floodplain.
So they
Yeah.
have, okay,
Yes.
all right.
County has to do.
Yeah.
County has a lot more to deal with now.
Yes.
Yeah.
So from a realtor's perspective, do you like this or do you? Well, it does allow people to be able to get flood insurance through the government. If we don't have this, then they would have to go out for flood insurance through non-government funded entities, and I guarantee it's gonna be a lot higher.
Way up.
Way higher. So it is a good thing that we've got that option to be able to get the cheaper insurance. Because they not only go over the cost of construction, but all contents also. Thank you.
Any other questions? What is the pleasure of the council?
Sure, I really.
You have a motion by Mr. Robinson,
I'll say.
second by Mr. Merrick. All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries. Next item, thank you, Kelly. Is fire department. Chief Kathy, item 1 is approval for the intergovernmental agreement between the city and the county for fire EMS, animal control, dispatch, and detention services.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. First and foremost, I'd like to thank everybody that worked so painstakingly on this agreement to get it to fit what council feels that the services we as a city should provide. I'd also like to thank the county commission, who did vote to approve this on 4/15 of this year. And that agreement is in your packet, and I'll stand for any questions.
Mr. Rockford, did you have anything you wanted to add on the?
I don't have anything to add. We did put everything in there that everybody requested to give definition to all the different entities. We did make a couple of changes that the county requested, but we worked those out and feel as best we possibly could. So we feel this is the best plan moving forward. Again, it's only gonna be basically for 2.5 years, and we're gonna have to redo it anyway. We'll probably have to start that negotiation in about 1.5 years, so we're ready.
1 year. Tomorrow.
At least a year ahead of time anyway.
Tomorrow.
But we feel like it's a good plan to give us all some breathing space and breathing room and move on to some other things we've spent a long time talking about tonight, worked on them.
Do we have any questions? Okay, what is the pleasure of the council?
I move we approve.
Seconds.
We have a motion by Mr. Lopez and a second by Ms. Parker. All in favor, state by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Chief Kathy, with Mike being out, do I need to run by there and have a wet signature for them? Steve, do you know? Well, I need a wet signature for their agreement.
More than likely, yes.
Okay. And Mr. Miller's out, so just need to get with them for that. Okay, I can do that. Thank you. Okay. Item 2, ratification of the mayor and fire EMS chief's electronic signature on FY 2025 municipal fire protection fund distribution application.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. This is our annual fire fund distribution that we come before you every year for. It's calculated based on our ISO rating, our number of main and substations. That gives us a minimum amount of fire funding for $218,920. But it does not reflect any additional amounts that may be calculated based on the solvency of the fund. And I will mention that our loans for our ladder truck and our Station 2 come off the top of what we receive. And I'll stand for any questions. And this is just the ratification. It's already done. Based on the timeline of when it needed to be submitted.
Do you have any questions for Chief Kathy?
Motion to approve. Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Merrick, a second by Mr. Rackler. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item 3, approval for resolution number 2024-07, removal of non-collectible or unsecured accounts labeled time barred to reduce the amount of allowance for uncollected receivables of the PFD financial statements. Mr. Kathy?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. Unpaid ambulance billing accounts prior to November 27, 2019 and dating back to June 11th of 2009, resulting in unpaid balances and no contact with the account debtor. It was 328 accounts totaling $116,765.75 are deemed non-collectible after 4 years based on efforts to collect on the accounts and locate the debtor. In accordance with section 37-1-4 NMSA 1978 time barred debt and section 3-37-7 NMSA 1978 accounts with balances resulting from no activity for 4 years or older, the governing body of a municipality may by resolution remove the non-collectible unsecured amount or account from the list of accounts receivable. The non-collectible accounts that are time barred will reduce the amount of allowance for non-collectible receivables on the face of our financial statements. In your packet is the rescue net report that shows each individual account. And as it states in the statute, we have to bring it for resolution to get those barred. And I will stand for any questions. And if it's a question that I cannot answer, Patty Heflin has.
She said. I just have one question, Chief.
Yes, sir.
I understand all what you're trying to do and that's fine, but I don't, it doesn't remove that debt from that person as far as their credit or anything else, correct? They still technically owe that. You're just clearing up your books.
No, they do not.
So it's gonna go off their record. It goes off their record.
Goes off their.
So if they ignore it for 4 years, then they don't have to pay.
And then they start again.
Then they start again.
Wow.
Mr. Robinson?
See, I just had an observation. I noticed on the school district just approved, and they went in concert with the state auditors to get rid of disposal of property. Is this still considered the same way
I do not know, sir. This is something that we've done every year.
every year? But I've noticed that in their announcement that the school district approved get disposal of property along with it, in concert with the state auditor.
And correct me if I'm wrong, a good portion of these are people that have passed away.
Some of them passed away, some of them
So it's
just. Want to take an influence, right? They have no intention of paying for it. I mean, it doesn't matter how many times you call them, so it's in letters. They're not gonna pay for it. So these are just ways to get it off our books, but it doesn't go against the patient's right at all. It's just.
Chief, that doesn't include insurances.
It doesn't include insurance
Insurances.
payments.
No, these are patients that they may have had an insurance, they just didn't pay the balance after that, or it was just complete self-pay.
Yeah, so the city does collect the amount the insurance pays,
Everything.
and the remainder could be a portion of what the insurance didn't pay or they were uninsured and self-pay.
They don't pay. And they don't get any kind of repercussion, but they know they don't pay.
Well,
Ultimately, they know. Do you know what I'm saying?
yes.
I mean, it's like, you know what? You're either a good person or you're not. I'm
Mm-hmm.
sorry, but yeah, they know they didn't pay. So, thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, can we have a motion?
Move for approval.
Second.
Have a motion by Ms. Parker and a second by Mr. Lopez. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next item is city council and staff comments. We'll start with the staff. Does anybody on staff have comments? Mr. Williams.
Yes. Just wanted to share with council some discussion with fire chief, Ms. Cordova earlier today. With the end of our warning period, we came up with a plan for how to handle the violations that may be by city staff. So what we're gonna do is, as the officers go through and approve those violations, they will print it right away, so we don't have to wait for the mail. And we will get with department heads so that we can delegate whoever was driving that vehicle to receive that. So,
I got a question, Chief.
yes,
Do you keep that thing 24 hours a day?
yes, sir.
Why? I mean, you know,
All day long.
I understand if you give me a ticket when school is on. But I can understand why it would be 24 hours a day.
People are speeding all.
Well, it doesn't matter, but there's no people in the schools.
Well, Mr. Lopez, it adjusts for the change in the speed limit. And if I remember correctly, we had people traveling in excess of 55 miles an hour during those 25-mile-an-hour zones.
But not, let's say at 12 o'clock at night, when there's nobody there, if you travel and more than you're supposed to speed, you still get a ticket. So I stay away from the school zone.
That's also gonna help with all these people that are racing around town too. I mean, that's one of the streets they race on.
If somebody decides to go out walking at midnight.
Yeah.
So what if somebody decides to go out walking at midnight and somebody's flying through there at 60 mile an hour? Are you saying there should be a cutoff on?
Good luck.
Jay,
They just killed one the other day in Albuquerque.
you
yeah,
need to go by what it says at our door. Do right and fear no man. Do right. It doesn't matter what time of day it is or night. Do right and you'll be fine.
And just for a little
Don't
perspective on it. Since we started with the cameras on the 18th of last month through the 16th. Because due to some software updates, we haven't gotten anything from since the 16th. But there were 2,703 violations for speed.
I got
2,703.
And so
Where's that?
these are civil penalties that have been thrown out. It doesn't go against your driving record. Even in school zone when it should. But what if somebody doesn't pay? So is there a warrant actually placed out on them under a civil penalty? or not?
No, sir, no warrant. Keep in mind, this is part of the zero, the cost neutral part of this thing is that we went with this company to do this. And then after so long of trying to collect, they have the option that they could take them to collections to get their payments. So that's where it doesn't cost the city anything other than the maybe 2 minutes for the officers to review the violations and submit it. and Everything else comes out of each fine. Like,
I got one in Albuquerque and I have to pay.
I'm really looking forward to seeing.
No, it was just a city, another city had.
Mr. Robinson?
Chief,
Thank you.
I'm glad we have this program in place. However, I wonder about Main Street, First and Second Street. At nighttime, and is there anything you guys have in process to slow down the people running through First and Second Street? And I mean, really, that's a good, if you, let's say you go from from the university to also Stripes, that's a rush road.
Yes,
And I wonder if we're gonna do anything that would stop two things, the speeding and the noise. And if we can do this, then we need to come up with another plan to stop the speeding and the noise down First and Second Street.
with the noise, we're still looking for decibel meters that will effectively help us get that, Mr. Moore's suggestion. And then I am hopefully on the agenda for the DOT commission next month to try to get these cameras put on the state highways.
Okay.
We have to get their okay to put them on our right of ways, that on our poles that we own, and things like that. So
Remember when we was going to Santa Fe, you pointed out that the worst, not the worst,
Encino.
the smallest town in New Mexico have a sign say your speed is. Right, and I hope can we get that funding?
Yes, sir. That's
Okay.
that's why our ordinance for this states that any of the funds must go to traffic safety projects. So that'll be to buy those signs, to buy lights, to help buy speed bumps, to do all of that kind of stuff.
Speed bumps throughout.
Ms.
I
Parker?
could say things that are traffic safety related is what we do.
I have a question, Chief. We currently have how many cameras?
4.
Are we looking, is that where we're gonna get? Are we done with getting cameras? Are we gonna get more cameras, or can those be moved, or are they?
We can ask the company to move them, which hopefully in their given locations, they'll be successful. People will comply because, we post speed limits. Everybody knows what a speed limit is, and hopefully everybody can read and recognize the signs, and if nothing else, make sure the speedometer matches, but they don't usually do that. So we can look to add more, we can look to move in the future, but I mean, my goal would be if we had 100% compliance and the officers like Sergeant Sanchez here were bored out of their mind, it would be ideal. But that would mean we're living in a perfect community, but people don't comply, which is why he's been over there on 17th Lane in that area, and I don't know how many tickets stops he wrote the other day. But
Good job.
I mean, it's one of those things where we're doing the best with what we have. We don't have the staff to tackle traffic 24/7. This gives us the means to do that, to try and provide a safer community for everyone that's living here and passing through.
Yeah, right. And that's what we always want to be, is proactive rather than reactive.
Yes.
Thank you.
And then we did have another conversation, and he's going to get the tweaks done for like the school holidays and that type of stuff. So we've talked through a few things, so they're working out the kinks and it'll get all worked out. But we look forward to it being a successful program.
Mayor Pro Tem, I have a question. Did you say there's a little variance, like if I go 26, is a person gonna get a ticket? You may have said it and I might have missed it.
It's not one or two over. I really don't want to publicize it. This is,
Sure.
I can go this far over the speed limit, but it's not a hard set. You go one over, you're getting a ticket.
Okay.
It's not that.
Okay, and is anybody else from staff? Attorney, you have anything for us today? Okay. Mr. Rathman?
Oh, you're starting on my end again. Okay, good. I'll knock out a lot of things probably. I probably opened a can of worms, chief, for City Hall, and if I did, I apologize. I went out and got a trailer load of the compost from the wastewater plant and posted that, and I've had a ton of questions about it. And I didn't really think real well about how the process is for somebody to go get that. So if we could get that posted web wise and everything, and who do they have to call? What's the hours they can do it? It's great. I mean, I loved it. I've put 2 yards of it in my trailer and there's still a little bit in there. If anybody wants to go by my office and get it out, it'd be fine. But I think a lot of people are interested in that, and a lot of people that I know, at least on my Facebook, didn't know about it. So I think that'd be a great thing. I always, I want to thank you and Chris for the little presentation you did with me on the online request system. Take some of your time to explain to me that process, and I want everybody to know that they work hard on that, and I really hope our community really goes toward putting in those online requests when you've got something, no matter what it is, whether it's dumpster street. There's a place for every kind of thing you've got an issue with, and they do get tracked, they do get logged, and that's kind of the only way you're gonna have a way to follow up on things.
Thank you, sir. We actually received one today for a speed bump.
There you go. And I wanted to mention, I got an email earlier today, as all of you did, that that the county got a grant for tire disposal. On the 29th and 30th, from 7 to 4 each day at 1500 North Boston, they will take, not commercial tires, but, not residential, that's the word I'm looking for. Passenger vehicle tires that you need to throw away. Be a great opportunity to get rid of those. They're very hard to dispose of. A lot of dumps won't take them. So that's the 29th and 30th from 7 to 4. And I just want to make sure, I've kind of waited 3 weeks since we got an email about the co-op. We still haven't gotten it on the agenda up to this point. I want to make sure that's on the agenda for next time to discuss or talk about, even if it's in the executive session. I just been sitting on that email for 3 weeks now, wondering what we're gonna do, so. Like to move forward with that, see if we can't get it off our plate. Thank you.
Ms. Parker?
Okay, a couple of things. First of all, trash pickup, and I think we briefly discussed what's going on with that. A lot of people have commented what's going on with the trash. I was supposed to be picked up on Thursday. I didn't get picked up until Tuesday, and by then it was completely full. So what are we?
I
What's-
had to get with Steve Chavez, who's not here tonight, to get you some more information, so I'll look into that and get back to you.
Okay, okay,
But I do know that all of our staff is working double time trying to meet up with the expectations of the Services Council would like us to provide. And I know the core sanitation people get a lot of negative comments, but there's a lot of opportunity there for anybody that would like to join our team.
okay. And another thing basically on that topic is that dumpsters. So I've gotten a lot of calls or texts or messages, and I'll ask them too if they have filled out the form. But people that have the older dumpsters that have, like, some of them don't no bottom, some of them don't have the lids. Some of them are just, so where are we? I know that we had received some new ones.
Yes, ma'am. All of those have been distributed out. We've reached the end of our funding to purchase new dumpsters. So far this fiscal year, they're working diligently to fix the ones that need repair. The one that you and I spoke about earlier, they're planning to put a new lid on it tomorrow.
Okay, very good. Okay, and so just let people know that we as
If
far
they
as
have
the
an issue, have
pickup.
them turn an online ticket in
Okay,
and the crew will get to it as soon as they possibly can.
okay. Do we have do we get the state street sweeper? Did I see a street sweeper in town? The state highway?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Well, whenever we get it, that's a good thing. So I appreciate that very much. And then an update on the skate park. Where are we with that? Because now it's getting warmer weather. And they're coming in.
26 is what I counted on Sunday afternoon on that thing, 26 people.
So we have signs that are gonna be going in soon, as soon as we're able to receive them, they are made. We just have to put them, well, we have to receive them. And then they will be like we are not liable for injury type of signs. We did put the memorial bench in. And we also put the small half pipe in, which basically completes the skate park, but we don't have we haven't finished all of the finishing paperwork yet. So it is not completely turned over yet.
So it's something like that, when we have something built like that, is there like a final walkthrough and inspection to make sure that everything is as we requested and that we want, and that there's no possibility of liabilities or anything? I mean, because I know, and I don't know, I know I walked through there and I kind of went through there, but you know, they have all the different tracks, so to speak, but then they also have like rocks as far as maybe landscaping or something, but there was a lot of rocks on the track. So now if somebody goes zipping through there on their skateboard and they fall because of that, is the city liable? I mean, and I know it's something like minor, but you know that we're gonna get calls on that because it's a city.
We
So-
will probably get calls on that type of thing. I'm hoping that people will, look where they're skateboarding and make sure that it's clear for them to go, because there's people.
Okay,
Um,
so are we gonna have okay, it's complete or anything like that? Say
yes, there will be a
announcement.
walkthrough.
Okay,
There will be a walkthrough and there will be paperwork that it is finished.
okay, good, thank you. Okay, then one more thing, street signs. I had requested, I know with all our crazy wind in our area, a lot of our street signs in our neighborhoods and our street signs everywhere lack of, there's no street signs, so that's something that has been on my list for quite a while, so I don't know what the status of that
As Mr.
is.
Chavez mentioned, those signs are very expensive. As well as the brackets are not made for our winds. And that's been a struggle getting the appropriate brackets that will hold up so that we don't continue to lose those signs. But I will get with him and see what about that process.
Okay, so that's still on the list. Okay, very good. Okay, and I just want to again thank with the well field, Chris Mendoza and Eric and everything that they go into. I mean, it was a really informative, wonderful tour, and it just brought light to a lot of things that are happening. And I just, tell everybody, thank you, not just from the water department, but through the entire city, because I know everybody's doing double time and having to do everything that's going on in our community. So I just thank you for everything. Mr. Merrick?
All right. We've had quite a bit of this discussion tonight, but some of the stuff I was gonna bring up, but we're still waiting on the agreement that we have with the state land office. Well field. Hopefully we can get some movement to that soon, so we can proceed with geophysical surveying out in that area. But also, last week, we had an opportunity to have a discussion with Mr. Bailiff from EPCOR. He was willing to come meet with the council and give us options on how they would be able to help the city. Another one of the reasons I wanted to oppose this thing we voted for tonight, but that's water under the bridge now, so we have an opportunity with them to be able to come in and look over our situation, and I think we need to set up a meeting with him, and if we could do that this next meeting, that would be great. I don't know. The type of discussion, whether it needs to be. How we need to set that up, but we'll review that. See what our options are. We do have issues at our well field and our wastewater plant. They have that expertise to address those issues. As I had stated before, and I would like to hear what their remedy to some of those situations could be. The next thing I had was. I probably have a question for you, Steve. Were we not a weak mayor system here with mayor, city
Right.
council, and then city manager? And in that, the mayor is not the one that sets the agenda. Is that correct?
The mayor does not control the agenda, the individual members.
So city council along with city manager and staff set the agenda.
Correct.
Correct. Okay. I would like for us to be able to review a possible agenda before it gets put out to everybody. So that we could throw in some input. I've spent several days last week trying to make connection with Mike to get some items on the agenda. It failed. And even though we still had time after the agenda was sent out, it still failed. So I think that we need to have that clarification that the mayor is not the one that sets the agenda. And that the council does have input. Preston got the motion put on. I don't know when that was done, but apparently that one was good enough to go on there. The next thing I wanted to bring up was that Mike Davidson brought this up a meeting or so ago about our trash transfer station. I think we really need to dive into this and see what our options are with some city land that we have. Trying to secure some funding to put up a building. I think that is a crucial way of being able to get our trucks off of the road going to the dump station. We can use semi trucks to haul that up there. Probably be a whole lot less or a whole lot more cost effective and cut down on the maintenance on the trucks that are going down the alleys, and then we can get on a better schedule without picking up the trash in the residents. I think it's something we really got to look at, not just push it down the road and kick in some more. So I'd like to see us either form a committee in Public Works or talk about that in Public Works and bring a proposal to us. That along with our water situation are two crucial items for this town. And then lastly, I think that we've got to be a little more business friendly. There's been some issues brought up this past week. I've been in communication with Chief and Ms. McClellan and several others in the city about situations where the business was trying to get started and was meeting some opposition. I know we do have ordinances in place, but they don't fit every situation. And sometimes we've got to have a little bit of common sense about things. So I just hope that we can use a little more common sense in some of those situations.
Mr. Elkins?
First, I want to thank Mendoza and Eric and Mr. Poe for giving us all a tour of the wastewater treatment plant. I don't know if you can say it was fun, but it was very, very informative. But it was a lot of information. So they put in a lot of work out there. So I do want to thank them for that. Joe, I do want to follow up on the skate park. The asphalt on that bike track is already torn up pretty bad. I don't know if that's going to be a common occurrence, but until we sign off on it, I'd make sure they fix it before we sign off on it. since it's not already in our possession. So I would at least have them see if they can fix that. Chief, I disagree with Jake. I sure do love those traffic cameras, and I love that he was on our street on 17th Lane. So when we were out on our walks, it was pretty nice, comforting to have him right there. So I do appreciate that. I want to reiterate Mr. Davidson's and Mr. Merrick's opinion of EPCOR. I think they are a great option for us. So I would second that we need to get them here for the discussions to see how they can help us.
Mr. Lopez,
I don't have any.
Mr. Self.
Yeah, I want to piggyback off that comment on EPCOR, I wasn't at the tour, but Eldon and Preston and Mike Rackley gave us good insight on what's going on at the wastewater. I took the tour on the well field, so I did have that tour, but as far as the wastewater, sounds like there's a bottleneck. It sounds like the pipe was undersized. The more we dig, the more we find that it was just not done correctly. I don't know how else to say it. So the city with, it takes, they say 10,000 hours to be an expert at something. We have knowledgeable employees that are experts in that field. We're not experts in project management or overseeing multi-million dollar plans. There's a company up the road that has more than capability of managing all that stuff. There's other companies out there, whether it's EPCOR or other companies. I'll just say it. I threw out the idea that the electric co-op would, their project managers, I think they could do a better job handling big projects, making sure they get done. I'm not bashing on our employees. That's not my intent. I want to be clear on that. We have a great employee at the city. But as far as overall project management for big projects, we're about to come up with $20-something million for a tank. And we think we have a good idea. And that was boots on the ground. That was, several guys that are like to think we have common sense. Who's going to manage that? You're going to hire an engineer from Seattle or wherever to manage that project? Who's going to actually be saying, hey, did you do this correct? Did you do that correct? I just think we got to look outside the box of, it's not just a water issue, it's a project management issue. These guys manage millions and millions of dollars and they provide a great service. Whether you go with EPCOR or electric co-op, we may need to come up with a new name, but I'll just publicly say it out there. That's thinking outside the box to me. Y'all come up with some new ideas, but I just think we need help with big projects. We need to make sure that the money is being spent as efficiently as we can. Thank you.
Mr. Robinson.
Yeah, I want to say that I went to power meeting the other day, and the power position is an energy that could help us in a lot of these issues that we're discussing. And we have a young lady here who's working with power directly every day. And when I was up there, I found out that my street projects are being through Serpro, I believe it's called Serpro. We have grants applications in. The cavalry is coming, I guess that's what I should say, because the COG and the city are working every day. As we sit here now talking about what we need to do, they are working right now on trying to come up with some monies to take care of some of our issues. And so I'm kind of glad that I'm part of the COG organization, because Joe Malink, Joe. Joe is Thompson is our go-between the COG and the city and the city manager. So we appreciate what you're doing with them. And there's some funds up there that she's looking into, and I think we're gonna get some of those funds eventually. to help us on some of our projects, such as swimming pool. But in senior citizen center, I think there's some funds out there available. Do we have thought they could help us find those funds and grants, et cetera. So, and also I think that we should start thinking more about encouraging our employees. By not talking about it, but this council needs to start asking for a salary study on what our employees are making. I mean, I hear all of these demands, fix this, fix that, but we're not paying, we're not fixing their income. And so I think that I would like to, as a former human resource person, ask any of you to join in with me to do a salary study and bring when we talk in our budget, and look at our city employees and see how we can adjust their salaries. Because we are asking these folks to do a lot of things, and they can leave here and go work at school district at $18 a month. So we need to look at some of these things, and but we're putting a lot of demand on, but we're not increasing their pay. And pay is not a motivator, but it is a good story. So I think we need to look at that and leave it at that.
Thank you, Mr. Robinson. I just had a couple of things to add. I just wanted to give everybody a reminder that Saturday, is it Saturday, the 26th? The 26th of April at 1 o'clock, they're having the memorial for Private Homer Mitchell from Randy Dunson came and invited us. So that is this week. We put it on your calendars. And then I would just like,
Is that Saturday or is that the 26th?
it's the 26th.
So
So
Friday,
the 26th
Friday the
is Friday.
26th. Okay.
Yes, so Friday, the 26th at 1
At the cemetery.
at the cemetery. One other thing was, with the negotiations, I know that the public last time when we did state that, yes, we had our agreement in place with the county. Kelly got overwhelmed with animal control questions, so please be patient with us in the animal control. If our facility is full, it's not a drop off like a shelter. We can't surrender animals that like owner surrenders. We don't take owner surrenders. We take strays and dangerous animals. If you have any questions, Kelly can answer those. You just have to call her department. Yes,
And
ma'am.
we've gotten the stray population down. We're able to take very, very limited owner surrenders.
Okay,
But it's still like one maybe every week, so.
okay,
Not a service we offer, but sometimes we can help people who have nuisance dangerous dogs drop off, so we don't continue to be a nuisance dangerous dog.
perfect. So we'll just say that if you have a question, just get with Kelly. And that is all I have. So we are adjourned.
The regional